Hit the button. It's going. Okay, it's recording.
And so it actually is recording now. I don't know if who's joining us can see that.
That's fine. Gary, just to let you know, I have a clock too. We're going to be ending at 11, right?
Yes, but like I said, if we can actually end a few minutes before, that gives me a little more
No
time
problem. Let's
to
plan
over
on
to the next service. So
You want to end at 5 of or 10 of?
I'd prefer to end closer to 5 of.
Okay.
And as long as you know that, then I don't have to
That's fine.
cut in. I don't like to rudely cut in. People don't do that to me when I'm preaching, so I don't want to do that to them when they're talking.
No, that's fine. It'll go fast. And that's why I just want to make sure if I have any main points, I want to make sure I don't miss them.
Okay.
It's not like I'm teaching class or like you giving
Right.
your service, but you kind of plan for that.
Because I have to share it on my that's all right. I don't care.
Oh, look at this. We got a notice. This individual says he's been able to listen in on all of our interactions even before we quote unquote went live. I can't mention the person's name because we're not supposed to mention names, but it was a trustworthy individual.
Oh. Well, we don't know why. Oh.
So we don't know why that's happening, but
We're still
we generally don't speak ill of people and et cetera, et cetera. So we might speak ill of one another in one another's presence, Lynn and I, but that's part of our relationship. So,
watch out.
oh, and my wife is leaving. She just said she's not saying a word. So all of you who are laughing at this, that's laughter's good for the soul. So that's superb.
I know why. Because you and Don were not muted, so anybody, participants who joins could still hear, but it's not recorded.
Okay, so all right, Deb says people could hear us, but it wasn't being recorded.
You are being
So
That's good.
we are being recorded now. So we're all still learning.
You just don't know where
And I was reading my Consumer Reports yesterday, and they're talking about some privacy issues with Zoom, and they keep bringing them up, and they address them, and then other things pop up. So
Yeah. Every time
we're on electronic media, you always need to be careful. These, what you're saying and doing, whether you're writing it or repeating it, there are things that get into the Ethernet and forever. So be very careful.
So Gary, I talk to so many people all around the world, and I have so many websites emails that they want me to use because I work with so many different customers. I get all kinds of malware and all kinds of stuff to get into my system. So it's something I have to be aware of all the time.
I can imagine. Goodness.
From reliable sources too, like Comcast or Amazon. I mean, you think it's coming from them, and it's not.
Wow.
So the devil's out there getting us.
Well, there's a group of us meeting tomorrow via Zoom because my email has been spoofed so many times, and people just see this request come from me. Sometimes it's innocuous, like,
I've had that happen too from the dean of the college.
yeah, there you go. But if you look at
What's he sending a message to me for? And it's all fictitious because they got into his email.
yeah, if they look at the email address, which people don't, they'll see it's not from me. But it's a real problem that it's hard to address. We're trying at church, but we will have to see where it goes. So we've got about another minute until we start. And people are still coming in.
So I'm not able to see that anymore. Like last week, I could see the number of people. I don't see nothing. Maybe my change.
All right.
Whatever they changed.
All right. So can you see the chat?
I can see the chat,
Okay.
but I can't see the people.
All right.
the numbers.
I will talk about that when we start with everybody. Good. That's good to know. All right, friends, let's begin. We'll start with a prayer. I'll have some instructions for us today, and then we'll move right into Don and his presentation. So let's pray. Jesus, it is by your grace that we live and move and have our being. We are intensely aware in this time of how dependent we are on your grace. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your strength, for your comfort, for allowing us to be together, for your Spirit's presence where there are 2 or 3 or more gathered in your name. Be with us today as we learn. May we be inspired. Thank you for Don. Thank you last week for Jeff. We pray these blessings in your name. Amen. So a couple quick instructions for you. We will be doing our very best not to mention names. We did that last week, and we really shouldn't be doing that, especially as things are recorded. Names that show up on chat, I understand, do not get recorded, but if I say your name, then obviously that does get recorded. So I'm going to do my best not to do that. So if you do put a question that Pastor Lynn passes on to us, we're not going to be putting your name to it. So understand that. Secondly, last week there were 40-some participants, but there were a lot of couples or more that were listening. If you are one of 2 or 3 or more, would you just put into the chat, that there's 2 of us listening at this location? And then that's a way for us to keep attendance. We're, curious how this is all going to pan out. All right, so I think that's enough for instructions. I want to introduce to you Don Townsend, who has been teaching at university for the past 19 years. He has worked for some of the biggest, most well-known companies in the DS, which in the US, which you can see on the screen. He is a full-time business and marketing consultant with his own firm, the Jason Group. And he has done work with some really big names, the NFL, Dancing with Stars, and you'll hear more about that. So welcome, Don Townsend. And would you start by just telling us a little bit about your personal life, growing up in Slower Lower down there in Delaware, as well as your family now? Have you always been a United Methodist? Tell us some of those personal things that you can share before we get into your work life and your vocation.
All right, sounds good. I've had some background slides here so you can see some of the information we're going to be sharing with you. I grew up down in Sussex County, Delaware, around Clarksville and Dagsboro, and I grew up in St. George's United Methodist Church. We still have a lot of friends and relatives that go there. I come from a divorced family. My mother and father divorced in 1969. And I'm telling you that because a lot of this has a lot of influence, not only on my relationship with the church, but also my career and my livelihood. In 1969, my mom had 3 boys that she raised on her own, and she was working 3 jobs. So one of the things we had to do is we had to do all the homework, and then we also worked outside of the house. And I want to say my mother and father basically divorced because they had a lot of stress in making ends meet. Neither one remarried, so it wasn't anything extra marital. It was all about the stresses of living everyday life. So my mother purchased a 50 by 12 foot trailer and put it on a piece of property that her father and mother had. So I lived across the street from my grandparents in a trailer for the first through high school years. And I worked ever since that divorce. I started out getting up in the morning with my older brother, going out and feeding the chickens in those old manual chicken houses where we had to not only do all the feeding and all the cleaning out of the water troughs, but we did that every morning. And you can imagine I couldn't smell anything but chicken feathers for most of the day. My first job in the Blue Surf Motel down in Bethany Beach, Delaware, at 12. So I've worked pretty much as long as I can remember. So what my God meant to me was a center of strength. And when I say that, I always come back to the center, like my heart to say, okay, I have to be talking to myself and understanding exactly what I'm doing and what my dreams are and how I can improve. And I had a big influence with my, I call him my godfather, but his name is Charles Marble. And he was good friends with my father, and they worked together. But when my mother and father divorced, we actually became pretty close in the church. He actually taught Sunday school, and he sang in the choir. I sang in the choir with him there too. But he always was a big influence and a big factor in keeping God close to me. And one of the things that I always knew, that the power was totally within me, and it was totally under my control to make changes for the future. And he guided me to do that in the early days. So first, I was the first from my family to graduate from college. And I remember telling my mother I wanted to go to college, and she's working 3 jobs, and she thought I was wasting 4 years when I could be working. And it's funny how things changed. But I went from Dagsville, Delaware to New York City, and I started working for Kellogg's in the Bronx and Harlem eventually. My first job out of school, and I want to mention this to you because it shows you the trials and tribulations, how you have to deal with change, was with Phoenix Steel. I was there for 6 months and I rewrote their training program for their sales team. And after 6 months, because of competition and the high unemployment rate, they downsized the sales force, and I was the last in, and I was the first out. So I prayed for a way to go forward and develop a center of hope with Jesus in my heart and guiding me for my future. I remember when I was downsized, I had to turn in a few things at a rental place, and I walked 5 miles to get home. And it gave me a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do. And that's kind of the way I was raised, because I was always on my own, and I was always dreaming about what I needed to do. And of course, that was a sad time because I lost my first job. So again, I was the first to graduate from my family from the University of Delaware in 1982. I moved to New York City and started working for Kellogg's in 1982, in the September of that year. And then I went to Fordham University and graduated in 1989. At Fordham University, of course, most of you know that's a big school where Vince Lombardi came from. And you also know probably that I'm a big football fan. So I was always one to look at things that guided me and motivated me. And he said, winning isn't everything, but the will to win is everything. And so I took a lot of pride in latching on to that so I could actually drive my future. And like Pastor Gary just mentioned, I started teaching as an adjunct at St. Joe's in 2001. And over the last 19 years, I've taught both there at Westchester and at the University of Delaware. And this last year, which I'll get into a little bit later, I was hired full-time. So I want to share with you my singleness of purpose. And this is a slide that I use with my students. I tell them that where I came from, the fact that I came from a poor background, a broken family, a single mother raising 3 boys. And I told them I had to have a single purpose, but it had 3 prongs. And one of the things was I wanted to do better financially so we didn't have to worry about the day in and day out bills that were having to be paid. So one of the anchors was the wealth part of it. Of course, I came from a broken family, so I wanted to have love. I wanted to find love and have a family with children. And I wanted to grow up in a loving family together. And then in 1993, I became a diabetic and type 2 diabetic. And so I've always worked and strived to be healthy. So those were the 3 pillars of my purpose in going forward. So I always believed that success demands a signalness of purpose. And Lombardi recognized that perfection is never attainable, but he believed that the quest for perfection was the ultimate thing that you had to have to challenge the races as an individual to run. So you really had to be focused on the actual race to get the best as you can be. And a lot of students believe they can get everything out of a textbook or online. However, I talk to them about being able to challenge yourself from a personal growth perspective is much harder to do than having somebody tell you that this is a curriculum, you have to read this textbook and take this exam. And I mentioned to them something that Lombardi said to me, and a lot of people a long time ago, that really resonated with me about how winning is a habit. And when I looked at winning, of course, I was a big sports fan, but winning to me was being successful in school, being successful in my life. So he mentioned that you have to watch your thoughts because they become your beliefs. And you had to watch your beliefs because they become your words. And then you have to watch your words because they become your actions. And then you have to watch your actions because they become your habits. And then watch your habits because they become your character. And in teaching new employees or in the university, people don't understand what character is. They don't understand that words, actions, habits, and beliefs are a big part of your character and who you are. So you have to be very careful what you become, because you can become things that you don't realize that you're becoming. So the difference between a successful person and others is not the lack of strength and not the lack of knowledge, but rather the lack of will. So I talk to my students and employees that they have to have a desire to do well, and they have to be willing to show up. That's one of the most important things they have to do. And I get a lot of motivation, especially when I was downsized a couple times, from Martin Luther King's statement here that he said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And coming from a divorced family and seeing my mother struggle, I always knew that sometimes you have to walk before you run. And in this case, he's saying, just keep moving forward. So one of the things you'll notice is that I've had a lot of challenges in my career, and I keep moving forward. So here's pictures of my senior year in college, both myself and my lovely wife, Alicia. And this is where we started from college. We met in college, but we didn't start dating until soon after. And then we were married and went on a honeymoon in 1985. And this is a picture of us in Italy, or Greece, I think it is. We went to Greece and Italy for our honeymoon in 1985. And this is just a little preview of some of the family pictures I'm going to show you a little bit later. This is probably when the kids were in school. Michael's up there bowling and his sister's watching him. And of course, another family trip that we have there. Nicole is now 31 and Michael's now 26. And this is a picture of our family trip. So this is a slide that basically shows some of my moves after I became the director of sales at Kellogg's. And I did 3 moves before, actually 4 moves before that. I left New York after 10 years and went to Des Moines, Iowa. And I was there as a unit manager of 10 people and had a couple of major accounts. And then I moved to Tennessee. After that, we moved to San Francisco and eventually into corporate office. But in corporate office, I was the director of category management, and they were looking at financially saving some money. So on December 5th, 1998, they downsized 1,500 senior level executives at Kellogg's. I was one. And it wasn't due to my performance. I had great bonuses and great performance appraisals. But I want to say, even if you do your best job, things happen to you. And I was kind of devastated because I thought I was going to be at Kellogg's the rest of my life. But we had a great relationship with Gull Lake United Methodist Church and a pastor there that shared the story with me for the first time. I may have heard it before, but it really resonated with me here. He said, when a door closes, God will open a window. And so that was a driving force for me that always said, no matter what happens to you, God's always with you, and he's always going to be with you to drive into the future. So here's just a timeline. You can see the different jobs I have. When I came out of college, I thought I was going to work for one company the rest of my life. And I tell my students that today's world, you're going to adjust based on your needs and based on where you want to be in your career. You'll probably have multiple jobs. And this just shows some of the challenges. And I want to say that I was never terminated for bad performance, but I was downsized or I got let go because of a purchase of a company. So all of these changes in life you have to be ready for. And this is just a little summary, some of the things I achieved. If you look from the bottom up, at Kellogg's, I won 4 Golden K Sales Awards. I was certified as a company leadership teacher. At Unique, we won the Target, Party City, and Walmart Vendor of the Year. And at Sara Lee, when I moved to Sara Lee, I won the Hive Impact Award in 2008 and 2009. And the first year there, when we launched a new item, I got the President's Award for going the extra mile. And so then the final award we got was in 2010 from Tesco in Hungary, because I worked international for 3 years. And we were recognized as being the vendor of the year. So you can see that even though you have challenges and tribulation, you can still keep moving, especially if you have a center of strength, which I did. So people asked me what my personal philosophy was. And one of the things I mentioned is that I like creating order out of confusion. I have an ability to do that because I believe you don't teach a squirrel to swim, or you don't teach a fish to climb a tree, but you leverage people's strengths against what's focused, a clear focus, purpose, and clear directives and priorities. And so I always believed also that you have to treat each employee and each customer and each student in education as being unique, because each of them have unique needs. And then they asked me the question about how this experience with some of the most recognized brands in the world has helped me. And I told them that I realized that good ideas, even great ideas, sometimes don't get accepted. So I appreciated the fact that the way you present an idea is just as important as the idea itself. So in order to influence people, I usually try to put myself in their position and think about it from their perspective. And then I'm able to present thoughts in a way more likely to succeed. And I've done it on 4 pillars in my corporate life, whether it be category management, national development of categories, the cross-functional teams, or the relationship management and CRM. So I built 4 pillars of focused leadership in my corporate life, and I've done that right down to my little small companies that I work with. And I've created a lot of excitement around a lot of things. We did a tie-in promotion with Dancing with the Stars. We did a promotion with Shoe Aid for Africa. I work with the NFL and Major League Baseball. So it's been really exciting to bring your brands together with other people more recognized than you, that you can actually get more support for ideas that's bigger than a price promotion. So you can imagine at Kellogg's, we used to do buy one, get one frees. And when you did that, people thought your product was too expensive. But if you did things where you were doing tie-in promotions with people and generating funds, or in the Shoe Aid for Africa situation, we were actually collecting used shoes that we would actually clean and put in bags according to size for people. And we did 200,000 shoes that we sent to Africa. And we sent them in 3 shipments to Africa. And over in 3 shipments, the interesting thing at that time, my kids were very involved in the African, the raising money for people in Africa in high school. And we shipped those over there in trucks, and we were robbed in all 3 trucks trying to steal what they thought was valuable merchandise. And we saw that when they saw they were used shoes, they just basically turned around and walked away. And then the government in Africa was trying to get money out of us, thinking we had a lot of cash that we were giving to somebody. And again, we were giving product. We were giving shoes to the people in Africa. My daughter and her 2 friends helped us clean some of the shoes along with other people in the company. And one of the things that they got back, and they weren't even thinking about it because I asked them to help out as a little project for school. And they got a gift from the children over there. They sent a doll that they made out of their hair, and a little note that said it was the first pair of shoes that they ever had. So it really resonated with my kids about how they can give back to other people that don't have as much. And we did it with other, like you see with the NFL Caring for Kids, where we gave a nickel of every product that was sold to Caring for Kids with the NFL alumni. So a little background on my service to the church. Right now, of course, I'm a tenor in the choir, and that's what I have the most time to do right now because I'm still very busy. Before that, I worked on a pastor-parents relations committee, and I was also the chair of the ministry council back in 2007. And at Gull Lake United Methodist Church, I also served there on the pastor-parents relations committee. So at the university, I've been an adjunct since 2001, started at St. Joe's and moved full-time in 2020. And I'll get into that in just a minute. But what I wanted to do was teach employees and students the virtues of having a plan. And the plan has to be something that is going to resonate with you. It's going to be passionate for you. And you really can't wait for someone else to tell you what to do. And I'm going to move into a lot of the problems that I have with college students today, and I've seen it with high school students too. And they tend to have everything handed to them about what they need to do. You need to take this class, you need to read these books, you need to study these chapters, you need to take this exam. And so for their whole life, they've been told everything they need to do. And then they graduate and they don't know what to do at that point because nobody's telling them what to do. Somebody says, get a job, but they really don't know what they do, what they want to do. So I talk to them about what they are good at and also what they have passion for. And I also talk to them about that they can't control anything that's uncontrollable. They can only control what they can control within themselves. And I had a famous philosopher tell my wife and I once about setting your sails. And if you've ever sailed a sailboat, you know you have to set your sails against the wind, and you can go across the lake if you want to, even if the wind's blowing in your face, by tacking back and forth. But one thing you can't do is control the wind. So you have to set your sails to the wind that is presented to you and not worry about the wind, for you can do absolutely nothing about it. So if you think about the wind as the economy or as anything that's happening in the political world, you can't control that. All you can control is how you react to it and how you reset your goals to win. So you can only control yourself. And I've used that in big corporate marketing strategies, and I've used it right down to my little startups and now with colleges. So you can never cry about failure, and you can learn a lot from failure. And that's another thing we don't teach our kids, how to learn from failing. And most kids don't like to fail because it gives them a stigma. And so I talked to them about two famous Americans, and they don't know who they are or what they did. And they know who they are, but they don't know what they did. One is George Washington. They know he's the first president of the United States, but that's it. And Thomas Edison. Of course, Thomas Edison had the famous story about how he failed 100 times creating a light bulb before it actually worked. And I asked him, I said, how would you be if you didn't have light in your room to do your homework tonight? And if you think about it, if you didn't have light, all you'd have is a candle. And so he was somebody who had this vision that he was going to make light. And so if you think about George Washington, I told him, I asked him, I said, do you know he lost more battles than he won? But he won the overall war against the British Empire. And so a lot of people didn't think that. They thought he won every battle he made, but they don't realize that life is a struggle. So the biggest weakness in our children today is a lack of understanding and the lack of searching for the facts and making major decisions. What they're doing is making major decisions now on emotion and looking for instant gratification. And some of that is because of the social media influence. Social media has been a great positive influence, but there's a lot of negative results from social media because they look for acceptance. And my daughter gave me a book that actually had a little more influence to me. And again, this is all bringing back to being centered in Jesus and centered on how I can control the things that are presented to me. And it was a book by Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Finding Your Why. And that's kind of the purpose, or make sure you're grounding in what makes you feel good about what you're doing and what you want to deliver to society. And he talked about this social media phenomenon. He says, so we have a generation of millennials, and it could be other people that's older, that's connected to social media, and it controls their life. But millennials are growing up with a lower self-esteem that doesn't have them coping mechanisms to deal with stress, and how you add a sense of, and now you add a sense of impatience too. So they're looking for a way of coping, and they're very impatient. So they've grown up with a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie, you log on, you watch a movie. You don't check the movie times at the theater. You want to watch a TV show, so you binge. You don't even wait till week by week by week. So many people skip sessions and then just binge the whole season at the end of the season. So that's the instant gratification. If you want to go on a date, you don't even have to learn how to be socially awkward on a date. You don't have to learn how to practice that skill. You don't have to be an uncomfortable person who says yes when you mean yes, or mean no, and then no when you mean yes. You just swipe right and it's done. You got a date. And you don't even need to learn about social coping mechanisms. So everything you want, you can have instantaneously. Everything you want, instant gratification, except for job satisfaction and the strength of relationships. And this is where it goes back to the centering, where you really have to understand how to communicate and how to have a center of strength with your, in my case, and I hope a lot of other people's cases, is with your Jesus and your God. So there's no app for that. There's not. It's basically a slow, meandering, uncomfortable process in building relationships and having job satisfaction. So I have taught students to learn to fail, to learn to communicate, and to learn from history. Now, I mention that because I can't teach them things from the Bible when I'm at work. I can't teach them a lot of times at church, even though at school, even though I do work for a Jesuit university, but I try to put it in a perspective that really resonates with them. So all things they think are not them and they don't want to do them. So I do this in order to help them grow and to cope with what's facing them today. So at St. Joe's University, they hired me to do a sales certification program. A lot of kids think selling is not a career they want to get into because they have to talk to somebody. But everybody sells, from doctors to nurses to mailmen. Everybody has to sell their wares. And if you want to have your own business, or if you want to work for a nonprofit, you have to get people's attention and you have to sell your wares. So the university wanted to hire somebody to do this. Then they put information out there for people to apply, and they were looking for people for 2 years. Couldn't find the right person. And I came to them with a proposal. I didn't even know it was advertised, but I came with them with a proposal about teaching students to sell so I could actually get connected with more students and give back more as I was getting into my latter part of my career. So the basic skills of selling is getting attention and building rapport, identifying people's needs. And in order to do that, you have to ask people questions and then match your product or your services with their needs. And then you have to understand and emulate any concerns that they have and gain a commitment. So the key here is you have to have communication skills. And this is the biggest weakness that we have today with the cell phone that we use, because it's a one-way communication. And when I was at Kellogg's, we used to spend $40 million a year on an advertising campaign, and it was one way. And we switched in the mid-'80s to be more closer to the customer, especially online, so we could have more of a relationship with the customer and talk to the customers. And what we found with social media today is that it is a one-way communication. People get on Facebook and they say something out there to the world, and they're looking for likes. But they don't usually have a conversation one-on-one with somebody about it. If you sit down and have a conversation on the same topic you have on Facebook, it usually doesn't happen. It's hard for them to actually have that type of communication. So what I'm trying to teach them not only is a way that will set them apart and give them a great career, but also help them learn to listen. So one of the things I teach students is the reason why God gave us 2 ears and one mouth. And I mentioned it just like that because we have to listen twice as much as we talk. And in sales, you have to listen twice as much as you talk because you don't want to overwhelm your customer. So in this certification program, we're partnering with the industry in the Philadelphia area. Want to teach ethical, well-trained sales talent at the university level and work with those businesses. And the core values of this sales certificate program, you'll recognize them because they're pretty much right in line with a church. You want to have respect, you want to have excellence, leadership, loyalty, integrity, selfless service, sales excellence, and also bring initiatives to closure. So one of the ways I've done this, even with people outside of the business school in English and real estate and other departments, is that you have to know how to do the perfect pitch. And the perfect pitch cuts through the competitive world and the world of clutter. And so basically it's a six-step process where you, in selling now, you would actually send out an email with some information, followed up with a short 130-character LinkedIn message. You might call. This is the biggest thing that students don't like to do, and that's pick up the phone and call somebody. But you would call and accept a voicemail message so you can have prepared a short message to get their interest. And then when you actually talk to them on the phone, you have to get an appointment, not make a sale, but get an appointment in 3 minutes or less. And then when you actually do talk to them, a lot of times in a virtual meeting, just like we have today, it's a 15-minute virtual meeting that you have to talk to them about your program. And again, it's to get that meeting so you can present your wares. And then you actually have a face-to-face meeting for 30 minutes or longer. And so we go to sales competitions at St. Joe's and we do this six-step process. And we've actually won some awards from this process. This is one picture from the awards that my kids had won. They came in 6 out of 96. And so it's amazing, the kids, when they got recognized for being 6, they were like, oh, we're 6. But I said, you're 6 out of 96. It puts a different perspective on it. And they did very well, and they won in different categories. And so we competed in 6 different competitions listed down there at the bottom. these are some of the companies I work with now at the Jason Group. I couldn't put them all up there because I actually launched and worked with 32 companies. But I put up some of the nicer pictures that I had. And so when I meet customers that want to take an idea to market, I tell them all the facts up front. I tell them how much it's going to cost you. I tell them how much resources and time and effort they're going to have to put into it. And I also tell them only 1 in 10 actually make it. So I give them the actual tough love, which everybody needs to hear or in school or other places, but they have to understand the tough love and what they have to do to actually build a business, just like you would have to do in order to build a good life with Jesus as a part of it. And so I tell them what it is. And of course, you can look at this failure rate. I only have 5 that are still churning right now to 32 that I started, but that's a little bit better than 10%. And so I feel good because they're making it. The ones that didn't make it are still, knowing that they had a good experience and they know that they did their best to launch their ideas. I'm currently working with a company from India. Their product's called Khazana, and Khazana in India means the treasure. And they actually have launched an Americanized version of a simmering sauce and also a basmati rice that can be prepared in a microwave in 90 seconds for the modern millennial. So what they're trying to do is get this ethnic food into the marketplace so that people can choose to have it for lunch or dinner, and it's really quick. And this is what the market's demanding. But we also have the regular basmati rice and the simmering sauces that take up to 20 minutes to prepare. And so we have a combination of both, and they're doing very well in the marketplace. During COVID-19, we had so much demand for our basmati rice, and we had demand for our sauces too. But the basmati rice was the biggest one in demand. The first day in Seattle, we had an order for 19 containers of rice for the Costco division out there. And my owner was able to keep enough rice in the pipeline and not run out of stock during COVID-19, which is great because a lot of you run out of stock on a lot of things. He's launching a hand sanitizer now with turmeric in it, which is a product that actually helps with the skin. And we're going to be launching that in July and August of this year in 3 different sizes. So here's Alicia and me on Easter Sunday 2008. So we made it a long way to there, and we've always battled it. I had a lot of friends tell me I'm like a cat with 9 lives. I keep coming back. But you have to have that center. And of course, I had the background with my church and with Charles and giving me guidance. And then along the way with the churches that we attended and the give back that we gave to the church and what they gave back to us as far as strength and centering of what we wanted to do in our future. It's been a great, great career, and we're looking forward to keeping it going a little bit longer. This is our kids today. And again, Nicole's 31 and Michael's 26. This is a picture of Michael singing the national anthem down at the University of Delaware. He did that for 3 years. And my daughter works at Vanguard, and there's a picture of him at Christmas. And of course, we have a couple cats, Chloe and Skippy. They're like our kids at home now because our other kids are now away from home. So this is during COVID-19. All of us, including Nicole's boyfriend, Nick, with our mask on that Alicia made. Alicia made over 130 masks for Devereaux, for the people at Devereaux that needed masks, and she made a few extras for family members and friends. And so this is a picture of us with masks and without masks. So Gary, I'd like to open it up if there's any questions for anybody. This has been a great run for us, and we're really close to the church, and we have church as our center spot, even though we do a lot around the world and in different areas of the world. We still have that with us every day, and we carry it with us every day. And we've come a long way from that beginning in a 50 by 12 foot trailer, and we've given back, we've done a lot, and we've had a very productive and very happy life so far.
Well, thank you, Don. What a professor. I did not have to jump in once to, get things going. You just took it from the beginning till just a few seconds ago. That alone impresses me. But as someone who's done a lot of speaking already this morning, and we'll do some more in a few minutes, it's a welcome break for me. So thank you for that. I really appreciated you talking about you did not use the word vocation, which is the fancy word for calling, but you did talk about how you use what are your strengths and putting them into your vocation, so it's more than just a career. It's more than just a job. It really is who you are, who God made you to be. I'm delighted that that kind of message is getting out there. I also thought your comments on lack of control and how you can, overcome that when you talked about, setting the sails and tacking back and forth. Dr. Dennis Durr is your neighbor there in West Bradford is going to pick up on some of that next week. That's this whole topic of resiliency. I don't know if either of my daughters is watching today, but I'm going to encourage them to look at this webinar video, because there's so much practical, helpful stuff, because they're 21 and 21 and 20 and 23 right now. The last thing I will say as we start taking questions is, I don't advertise products, but these Kazana simmer sauces, my friends, if you've always thought about wanting to try Indian, but you heard they're a little too spicy and you don't like things that are hot and spicy, you will like the Kazana sauces. You get all the spice flavor without the heat. Deb and I, having Indian daughters, we just add the heat ourselves, so then we're happy. But for most people, you'll get all that wonderful flavor without the heat, and good products. We shop at Giant, and we're able to find them there. And I wish other suppliers had been as competent to keep their products in the pipeline when it came to rice, because the rice shelves have been, completely empty for the past 3 months. Anyway, Pastor Lynn, do we see some questions?
I don't have any questions right now. I think that the presentation was so excellent that he told us everything.
That's fine. Let me just mention one other thing. When you work international, you work with different religions. Actually, I work with the Indian company that's Hindu, and they also practice Buddha. And a lot of the religions, they'll tell me, is very similar to our religion, where you have to have a center of control, center of excellence, or the center that actually motivates you and how you have your character of your life and to be a good person. And so I've always believed that you have to resonate that, you have to exhibit that strength when people meet you. And so even though I'm not knocking on doors trying to get people to come to church, at the same time, I'm trying to teach kids the things that they have to have in their life to actually have a good life. And one of the big pieces of that is the church and the relationship with God. I remember when I was in high school, I saw Star Wars, and of course, we're talking about the Force, and the Force be with you. And Obi-Wan Kenobi telling Luke Skywalker to let it go. And he just had to let it go, let his work with his feelings. And I really believe that Force was Jesus inside of Luke Skywalker throughout all those movies. And so in my world, I always had to reach back inside me to figure out exactly what we did. And Alicia and I said to ourselves a lot of times, because we've moved around the country quite a bit, we would say a general term that we let go where the wind blew us. But in a real specific term, we knew that God had a plan for us, and we were going to go where the adventure was taking us. And so we've learned a lot. We made a ton of friends. We've been experiencing a lot of the different parts of the world. And you can imagine, I was playing baseball in the backyard behind my 50 by 12 foot trailer, just dreaming of trying to figure out what I can do to actually have a better life than I did in the first part. But if you go and somebody asks me about my childhood, I had a great childhood, but I had no father. I worked most of the time. I never saw my mother that much because she was working, but I really enjoyed my time down here. I'm actually in Bethany Beach now, in the beach area, and growing up in these places.
Wow. I noticed that many of your products are non-GMO, sometimes gluten-free, great for the environment. Anything you wanted to say about that and how your faith informed that, or was that just how you got connected with that particular company? Talk about that for a minute.
Well, when I first started at Kellogg's, they were health-based. It started in a sanatorium in the late 1800s by Dr. Kellogg, which was the founder of Kellogg's brother. And he believed in health and wellness for everybody. And people would go to his sanatorium to get healthy. And one of the things he did there was have cleansing. They would eat healthy grains and get away from fatty foods. And the brother wanted to market it. That's W.K. Kellogg. But the doctor did not. He wanted to keep it in his sanatorium. So they had a disagreement. And they agreed to disagree, I guess. And W.K. Kellogg took the product in 1906 to the marketplace. And so he launched it as a healthy product. And when I left Kellogg's in '98, they had issues with finances. They wanted to build market share, so they decided financially that they had to add more sugar to the products to be able to sell more products and deliver shareholder value. And I left then and I went to Sara Lee, which is not a food company. It was more of a fragrance company, a household and body care, and also a shoe care company. And so I got away from food. And when I got to the point after they were sold off to S.C. Johnson, I had an opportunity possibly to go to S.C. Johnson, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do, even though they're a family company and supposedly environmentally friendly. But I wanted to do something else, and it got me back to food when I worked initially as a consultant vice president for Garden Spot Distributors, which is in the health food area. And not only did I do the functional things to get them profitable and I launched a lot of their own brands and built some brands there, I realized that that's where I wanted to be. And of course, I sat on my front porch after my work there was done, and the phone started ringing. I had people that I work with at Garden Spot saying, can you help me go to market with my sprouted grains or with my gluten-free pretzel? And a lot of these companies were women's owned or minority owned, and they had an idea because they had a problem at home with celiac disease or with the problem that they couldn't digest the wheat. And so they would use the sprouted products, which is also from the Bible, if you know from Ezekiel, that people would eat the grains from the earth. And a lot of those grains would lay on the ground, get wet, and start to sprout before they make the bread. And so those kinds of things were a sign from God about how you should eat these. And it's not a starch at that point, it's more of a vegetable, so it helps digest. And because I was diabetic, I could eat bread again. And so that was a great vision for me to go back into that area and help people to the marketplace. I've helped other ones, you know, the laundry detergents and those, but I like getting into the natural organic because of the health aspects of it. I wouldn't say that we're freaks about always eating organic. We do try to, but at the same time, we try to balance out the good and bad, what we do. And as a diabetic, when I first started as a diabetic, you had to give up everything and just eat really nothing. But nowadays they say to balance it out, if you want to have a piece of birthday cake at a birthday party, you just give up something else to kind of balance it out. So everything's a little bit what you can control and you give and take. And Simon Sinek's got a great new book out called The Infinite Game. And he's talking about, it's not always about winning, it's about where you are in your goals, if you're ahead or behind and where you want to be. And so it's not a finite game, it's more of an infinite game that you're playing. And so these kinds of logics come from the Bible, and other writers have them out there, and I resonate with them. And then I see other people that have had big businesses that try to deliver visions of what their ideas are, like Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela. But Nelson Mandela always talked about leading from the back. He would lead from the front, and he would lead from the back and support them. And that's kind of the leadership role that I've taken. I haven't been in their face. I haven't told them what to do. I give them guidance as to what to do and actually help them steer the sailboat when they're hitting those winds. So we can't control the winds. And I've had so many people I work with that get depressed if it's raining or hate it when it's dark outside in the wintertime. And I just tell them, I said, that's God's gift to us, and we cannot be upset about that because we just have to deal with it. And if it's going to be raining today, we'll just have to let the rain pass. And the smell of fresh air and the fresh rain and giving the rain to the crops is great. So you have to look at parts.
We're running out of time, but we have one question that from a fellow choir member. Again, we can't mention names, but a fellow choir member who's asking about sugar-free and salt-free kinds of things. Do you have any quick advice in that regard? And then we'll draw to a close.
The logic behind that has changed over the years. A lot of times people took sugar out and replaced it with an artificial sugar. So you have to be careful the types of sugar that you're eating. There's a couple out there, monk fruit and erythritol, which aren't as bad as some others if you have to have sweetness. I tried to give it up, so I didn't have the sweetness, but if I wanted anything, I would use a little bit of that. Salt-free, you have to have the product before the salt's put it in there. You can't take salt out of products as easy. And so when I was trying to stay away from sugar and salt, I would eat of course I was at Kellogg's, I would eat the shredded wheat products. But if you have a restriction on salt, of course you have to be careful what you have with that.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. Again, do let Pastor Lynn know if there's more than one of you so we can get an accurate count for attendance. Always a big deal for United Methodist. And next week, Dr. Dennis Durr, whom I've noted lives down the street from Don. Dennis will be with us. You can check out his book ahead of time. And do a little reading before, and maybe pepper him with some questions about the book. Thanks again, Don. You've put a lot of time into this, put a whole lot of information into a little bit of space, which is all the better for us. And I hope that those of us who are participating today are going to share this recording with people in our lives who could benefit from it. Thanks again, Don, and we'll see you all next week. God bless.
Have a good week.
Thanks.